Hi, just want to let you know it's really hot in the UK today, and I've had to stop recording like 3 or 4 times because I'm too hot and my camera's overheating, so if there are any continuity errors, I'm sorry, I've done my best. Anyway, if you've watched my videos before, you'll probably know that one of my favorite things to complain about is that Pixar films come out a lot later in the UK than they do in the US. And as a big fan of Pixar, one of my favorite things to do is traveling to other countries just to see Pixar films. I've been to the Netherlands, I've been to the USA, and while I do rant about it, it's all in good humor because I know there's a good reason why they release their films later in the UK. But recently, with the release of The Incredibles 2, it's come to my attention that a lot of people don't know why and would like to know. And add that to the fact there's been this false rumor that's been spreading that I really dislike. Today, I'm gonna set the record straight and explain why Pixar films come out later in some countries than others. Start by talking about the aforementioned false rumor that I despise and brought my attention to the fact this video needed to be made, being that The Incredibles 2, which has been out in America and a lot of the world for almost a month now and isn't coming out in the UK until the end of this week. I can vouch for that because I was at the premiere on Sunday. Just thought I'd let you know. Also, follow me on Instagram. Has been delayed because of the World Cup. But it's just complete and utter tosh. And pardon my English, it's complete and utter garbage. And it really annoys me too because writers for major news outlets are writing articles like The Incredibles 2 and Ant-Man and the Wasp will arrive a month late in the UK. And the World Cup is to blame. Oh, this is gonna be good. As many people will already know, the 2018 Russia World Cup is set to take place between 14th of June and 15th of July. As usual, the country is expected to go crazy over the prospect of England maybe, just maybe, having anything other than a 0% chance of winning, then being disappointed when the joke we call a national football team cocks something up and fails out of the tournament with 0 grace. England are through to the semi-finals of the World Cup. Now that is awkward. But like, I get it. This guy clearly hates football, so obviously doesn't like the World Cup all that much. And I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with the fact he's trying to spread a false rumor to get other people who don't like football to blindly hate the World Cup. Because of this, there's going to be an entertainment drought, with Ant-Man and the Wasp, The Incredibles 2, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom having their cinema releases delayed. Okay, while I don't doubt less people go to the cinema during the World Cup, there definitely isn't going to be an entertainment drought. And also, none of these films have been delayed because of the World Cup. Heck, Jurassic World came out 16 days earlier in the UK than it did in the US, so how is that a delayed release? So from that, I can tell you're kind of making things up as you go along, but I'm gonna keep going. The Ant-Man sequel is due to arrive in the US on July 6th, but because Disney and Marvel don't want to compete with the World Cup, it won't be arriving here until 3rd of August. Similarly, The Incredibles 2 was expected mid-June, and is now going to arrive in the UK mid-July, because Disney doesn't want 2 of its films competing, and Ant-Man and the Wasp is getting the short end of the stick. Now this isn't entirely untrue. I do believe the delayed release of Ant-Man and the Wasp is due to The Incredibles 2 coming out in July rather than June in the UK. Both properties are owned by the Disney company. You can only go see one film at a time. They obviously want you to go see both, so where would be the logic in releasing them at the same time? Space them out by a month. You're gonna make more money. It makes sense. But this article's just made up the fact that the delayed release of The Incredibles 2 is due to the World Cup. But this just isn't true, and I'm gonna explain why. Firstly, no reliable sources have said it. Just Tom Pritchard, news editor at Gizmodo UK. Yeah, they're about as reliable as, well, me, I guess, but I'm showing proof of my work. So let me get on to the second point, which is that The Incredibles 2 is coming out before the World Cup even finishes. Meaning if they did plan around the World Cup, it really hasn't worked. We know this wasn't their intentions because thirdly, Pixar films come out for summer release almost every year, whereas the World Cup is held every 4 years. Therefore, last summer in 2017, there was no World Cup and Pixar released Cars 3, and it came out in the UK in July, despite its initial release being in June in the US. And the same applies for their summer release the year before, Finding Dory, and the year before that, Inside Out. Meaning Incredibles 2 is gonna come out in July in the UK, World Cup or not. So how about we don't write articles trying to criticize great events like the World Cup that truly bring people together? As I can say, as someone who's lived in London, the capital of England, my entire life, I have never seen the nation this upbeat and happy as we are since we've qualified for the World Cup semi-final for the first time in 28 years. So I just don't understand why you'd write an article to make people angry about something that does truly bring people joy in the way the World Cup does. Anyway, that's all besides the point, because I've just taken the biggest tangent of my life and still haven't answered the question why Pixar films come out later in some countries than others. Well, to be honest, I think the solution for summer releases is pretty obvious. Because Pixar films are animations, and despite the fact I hate it when people call them kids films, kids are a major demographic and target audience. Therefore, they time their summer releases to come out when school finishes for summer. Meaning in the US, which according to my in-depth research, schools finish between late May and mid-June, the film premieres and comes out in mid-June. Because kids being out of school means the film presents itself as something for parents to give their kids to do during summer break, and well, it works. Their films make lots of money. It all makes sense, except for the fact American summer vacation takes place largely during spring. I don't get it. The UK, on the other hand, actually finishes the summer during summer, specifically July. Like, literally schools are finishing this week, I think, which means Incredibles 2 comes out in July in the UK, just in time for school to finish, and therefore, because Disney don't want two films that'll be going after the same target demographic coming out at the same time, being Ant-Man and the Wasp and The Incredibles 2, since they're both superhero films, Ant-Man and the Wasp has been delayed till August. No big deal, other than the fact it's 100% gonna get spoiled for me. Point is, summer releases being delayed has nothing to do with the World Cup, it's to do with school. And a similar logic can be applied to Coco, which came out last November for the American celebration of Thanksgiving. I have no idea what that is. You guys have way too many holidays. Like, here we have two, Christmas and Easter. That's literally it. And because of the United Kingdom's lack of holidays, it wouldn't make sense to release the film at the end of November, when everyone was still working and not off for Christmas yet. And they couldn't release it at Christmas because that's when they released Star Wars. Therefore, they had to release it in the new year, and that's exactly what they did. They released it at the end of January. Long story short for today's video, which I admit has been stretched out to an unbelievable amount. The reason why films come out later in some countries than they do in others is because there's no universally good date to release a film. Except maybe Christmas, but that's why Disney chooses to release films from what's their biggest franchise, Star Wars, annually at Christmas time. Therefore, when it comes to releasing films, studios choose to get it out for their best possible US release date because that's where they're based and make most money, and then release it at the best possible date elsewhere. It isn't all that complicated. I'm sorry I took so long to get to the point, but I know if you watched the video this far, you probably enjoyed it, so make sure to leave a like and check out my other social medias, including Instagram and Twitter, like I mentioned earlier. You can subscribe to my channel by clicking here. You can watch another video by clicking here. You can check out my merch here and in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. By the way, if you're wondering, it wasn't worth recording this scene. It wasn't. It's just created a mess.